Oh, hey guys, you're here. Good morning. It's early morning, just got up, just got started for the day. And I'm glad you're here. Now you guys can ride along with me today and we can learn about what we do on the Spies farm. I'm Farmer Spies, and today I want to talk to you about a couple of things that we're doing right now on the farm. And it's fall right now. It's getting a little colder and we're starting to harvest our crops. Harvesting means cutting our crops down and collecting the seeds so that we can take the seeds to the feed mills, and the feed mills are where they make our seeds into food for chickens or cows. So today I want to talk to you about some of the tools and a couple of the crops that we're harvesting. Now behind me is one of the main tools that we use on the farm all year long. This is called our shop. And in this shop we work on pieces of equipment that either need things to be fixed on them, or we just do general maintenance so that they don't break down while we're using them. Inside this big building here, we have a lot of small hand tools like wrenches and hammers and punches, and it helps us work on these equipment so that we can make sure that we can stay in the field and we don't break down. So as we go through today, I want you to ride along with me and look at all the different tools we're using on the farm and really think about some good questions that if you guys want to ask your teachers, she can ask me, and maybe we'll answer any of those questions you have. So let's get started. We're going to go find out about tools and crops. Here is one of the big tools we use on the farm. This right here, which everybody probably knows the name of it, is a tractor. There's a lot of cool things about a tractor. A tractor on the farm does a lot of different jobs. Where there's also some tools that do one specific job. This is a tractor and it does a lot of different things. It will help us. It has big wheels on it, like you can see. The wheels are as tall as I am, and that helps them because they work out in the field where it can be really soft and it's dirt. So they need to be able to keep the tractor up on top of the dirt. So they put a lot of wheels on them to make them stay up on the dirt better. Now this tractor up here in front of it, this whole front part of the tractor is the motor. The motor is almost as big as our cars that we drive in. That big motor creates a lot of power so that this tractor here can pull big pieces of equipment that we have to use to work in the field, to plant the crops or work the field to get the field ready to plant the crops. So this tractor is always being used throughout all the seasons of growing. So I don't know if you guys have talked about seasons, but in the spring we plant crops, and then in the fall we harvest crops. So this tractor is always being used throughout the whole year to be part of that growing season. Now, you've seen the outside of the tractor, so now we're going to go in and we'll look at the inside of the tractor. All right, so now we're sitting inside the tractor. Now, inside it's almost just like a car. So you have a lot of different controls to make you go forward, make you go backwards. You have a steering wheel that helps turn the tractor and go the different directions. And one of the cool things about the tractor is that it has glass all the way around you. And when you look at it, at first you're like, man, why would they need all that glass? Well, when you're working in a field, you really need to be able to see everything around you to be able to make sure everything's going right. So I can look behind me and see the piece of equipment that I'm pulling, or I can look beside me to make sure I'm going straight down the row. And then all my controls are right here at my fingers. So I can just do all my movement. This is how we go forward, backwards, and this is how we put our pieces of equipment up and down, up and down. It's very simple and easy, and so that way I can work all day and not have to do a lot of extra work to get the things to work right. So then that way I can work real long hours and not get tired. All right, so this is our combine. This is one of the biggest tools on the farm, and we don't use this tool all year long like we do some of the other tools on the farm. This tool has a specific job. It does one thing for us, and it harvests the crops and collects the grain so that we can take it to the feed mills, and the grain is what we sell to be able to make feed, and also so farmers can make money. So the combine here has a attachment on the front of it, which we call a header. For right now, this header is what we use to cut and harvest corn down. So as you can see, there's little gaps throughout the whole front of this corn header, and that's where the rows of corn will go through. And in a little bit, we'll take the combine and we'll go out in the field and you'll see how it works. So as the corn comes through the combine, it goes in the header and then into the combine, and inside that combine, the combine will take the seeds off of the corn cob, and it'll collect only the seeds of the corn and put them in its big grain tank right behind the cab, and it'll collect all the seeds in that big grain tank. And then when it's time when that grain tank gets full in the combine then will unload through its big long auger on the side. It'll pull out its long arm and it'll come over top of the truck, and it'll dump the corn into the grain tank. So now let's get in the combine, let's turn it on, and let's see how it works. Inside the combine cab. So right now I've turned the combine on, and you really can't hear it. So the cab really insulates all the sound, but inside here is where all the controls are to run the combine. So just like any other vehicle, it's got a steering wheel here, and it's a lot different than some of the other vehicles that you would run, because the forward and backwards in a combine is just on a joystick here. It's just forwards and backwards. So it's really cool. And then all the controls for running the corn head are right here at my fingertips. So it's very easy, so that I can keep my eye on the combine as it's running instead of having to look down and look what controls I'm using. Okay, so here we go. I've got the corn header turned on. You can see the augers and all the pieces turning, so that they can pull in the corn into the combine. I'm going to push a button to make the corn head go down. As you watch, the corn header pulls the stalk of corn down and just pulls off the ears of corn, so that only the ear of corn will go into the combine. It's a lot different than the soybean plant, where the combine will take the whole soybean plant into the combine. The combine has now harvested the corn, and it's about to unload it into the truck. So now let's turn around and watch as the combine pulls up to the truck and unloads the corn into the truck. So then the truck can take it to the feed mill or the grain tank. See how it's coming out of the side auger of the combine? And if you look on top of the combine, you can see the corn piled up on that big grain tank, and it'll slowly go away and into the truck. All right, here we go. Here's a tool that we use on the farm during harvest season. Harvest season is when we start cutting the crops off and taking them to either a feed mill, or we take them to store the crops in a grain tank. Now, this behind me is a tractor and trailer, and we call it that because there's a truck that we call the tractor truck, and there's a trailer that's the trailer. Now this trailer is just a really big container that when our combine harvests the grain, it will take its auger and it'll dump the grain into this truck. So this truck will then take the grain down the road, and right now it's bringing it back to our farm, and it's coming down and it's going to put the grain into our grain tanks. So if we want to look back here, we have on the back side of the truck, it has a little door on it. And the door goes up and down, and when you pull the door up, the grain will come out. And the grain will come out, and it will go in this bucket. It'll go in this bucket, and then this auger will take the grain to the top of the grain tank, and it'll dump it in to the grain tank. And then the grain will stay in that grain tank until we are ready to sell the grain to a feed mill. Because feed mills need to make food for animals all year long. So they don't always want the corn that we're harvesting right now. Sometimes they want to wait until January of next year or March of next year to buy some. So they ask us to store it for a little while, and so we'll store it in our grain tanks, and then when it's time for them to take it or they want it, they will call us and we'll say, okay, we'll bring you, we'll load it back into the truck again. We'll put this auger by the grain tank, and then the auger will load it back onto the truck, and then we'll take it to the feed mill so they can make animal food for the chickens and the cows. Welcome to one of our soybean fields. This field here is about 50 acres big. Now, an acre, if you think about it in your head, is about 1 acre is about the size of one football field. So this soybean field right here is about the size of 50 football fields. Really big. So a soybean plant looks just like what I have in my hand here. It has just like most plants do. It's got a root, it's got a stem, it's got leaves, and then it also has the grain inside a soybean pod. So the soybean plant is really neat, and it's a lot different than a corn plant. So the soybean plant, right now it's still growing, it's still all green. As it grows, it'll start to get ready to be harvested, and what happens is all these leaves will fall off of it, and it'll turn really brown, and it'll get real dark brown and golden, and then the soybeans will be ready to harvest. And the combine will take the whole plant inside of it, and then it has tools inside the combine that can open up these pods, and the combine will only take the little soybean seed. To our cornfield. We're in the middle of corn harvest right now, and so you can see here that we've harvested some of the corn, and there's still some standing. So when you look at it, the corn that's been harvested looks like it's totally gone, but actually most of the plant is still there, and the only part that the combine is taken from it is just the ear of corn. So when you look at the corn plant, it's just like every other plant. It's got roots down in the ground, and it's got a stalk, and it's got leaves, and it also has ears of corn. They call them ears because they stick off the side of the plant, kind of like our ears on our head do. So they call them ears. And so this plant starts from a seed, just like most other plants. We plant them in the spring. We put the corn seed in the ground, and through the summer and into the early fall, it grows really tall, and it's green most of the time. But then as it gets ready to harvest, it turns brown and dries out, and all the moisture goes out of the plant so that the seed can dry out really good. If we look down here, I've taken the husk off one of the ears of corn so you can see how the ear of corn looks on the plant. And these are all the corn seeds right here. And this is the only part of the plant that we actually want to take and put into the truck so we can take it to the grain mill. So when we take it off here, you'll see too that there's parts of the ear of corn that we don't want either. So this is the only part that goes into the combine when you harvest corn. And then inside the combine, it will take all this off, and it'll take the corn seeds and it'll just collect this, and it'll take this, what we call the cob of the corn. This will go through the combine, and the combine will throw this back out onto the ground. If you look down on the ground here, you'll actually see pieces of cobs where the combine has taken the seeds off of it and thrown it back out onto the ground. So corn plants are a lot different than the soybean plant, where they're really tall. The soybeans are really short, and the soybeans have a lot of pods on them with a lot of soybeans, like a couple soybeans in each pod. And where the corn plant is one big tall plant, it has 1 or 2 ears on it, and it has all the seeds